Hi there, and welcome back to the Girl&Gallery Podcast. I'm your host, Lucy, and today we're with Katie Hector, who's an artist and curator working in LA, and she creates these amazing portraits that kind of have this graffiti-like, almost acidic, holographic style to them, but there's a lot more to them than that. Her current work is called Cyborgs Never Die, and it's the show that we're currently sitting in at the Moosey Gallery in Hoxton. Katie, thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Thank you.
How's it going?
It's great. It's great. This is kind of my last couple hours in London, so.
All right, you're leaving for the airport right after.
Absolutely, yeah.
Your whirlwind tour.
Yeah.
So can you tell us where the name for the show came from? Because it's a lot of people I'm seeing, or I assume it's people, but you named it Cyborgs.
Yeah, I think the name, typically when I'm working, I kind of have this like loose association.
Okay.
The work happens very quickly. It's all done with airbrush. I'm typically like masked up.
Oh, wow.
And then I have like music going while I paint and things like that. So it's kind of like this really kind of like hyper state. But while I'm working, like different words will kind of come into my mind, or different like ways of like associating with the images.
What kind of words do you mean?
Either it could be like references like from like past, paintings or past artists, or it could be from poetry, it could be from songs. And so typically, like while I'm painting on a work table, I'll just keep like a white piece of paper, and a Sharpie, and just like kind of keep track of when those words pop up.
Cool.
Because they'll come up, but then they'll also just like go away just as quickly.
Yeah.
So the title for this show just came up really quickly while I was making this body of work.
Okay.
And it's something about it resonated in terms of these are all faces or these are all people, but at the same time, I'm very aware that they're two-dimensional, paint on canvas.
Yeah.
They're more kind of icons than they are human beings. And they're also kind of like loose, or I try to walk away from them being individuals.
Okay.
So that a viewer can approach them and just have more of an open-ended interpretation to each work. Yeah. Okay,
cool. So do you know who they are, as in like you use a person that you... Like, do you have a sitter for them, or do you kind of just make them up?
They're all from research. All of these are based on photographs.
Cool.
But in terms of my association with the subject, I don't know them. They're just from these like really huge research swaths from the internet. Trying to find like good images to work with. So they're from all over, like all different kinds of photography references, yeah.
So have you ever painted anybody that you know?
I'm just starting to.
Oh, really?
I'm just starting to kind of get into it. And like, I didn't want to force it to happen, but now it seems like, and part of the show while I was making this body of work, that started to kind of come into play. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, that's a much more intimate, kind of slower process, and I didn't want to force it. Yeah. Right.
How does it feel to paint people you know? Is it different than?
It's a little tender, yeah. It's a lot more like I just wanna get it right,
Yeah.
Where I think these are a lot more. At times they can be for me more about like these formal, play,
right?
In terms of like color, saturation, composition, things like that.
Oh, that's really cool. So, what drew you to portraiture?
I've had this weird full circle, kind of journey with portraiture.
Yeah.
So it was like the first entry point for me as an artist, like as a little kid. Mm-hmm. And throughout high school, I focused a lot on like more rendered, realistic portraiture.
Yeah.
And then I really, at the end of like high school senior year, and then going into like a conceptual kind of undergraduate program, started to kind of like rip away from it.
Okay.
And then when I was
living, way?
With in terms of there were just more interesting questions.
Okay.
It's like I didn't need to paint a chair like 1-to-1.
Yeah.
So it became more about like material investigations and
like textural almost.
Yeah, or just like industrial materials like enamel or wood or
cool.
Just like really getting into different surfaces,
and different mediums.
Like yeah,
right.
Totally. So I feel like I went through that whole journey And then again, after undergrad, living in New York, which is like the birthplace of Abex, you know, I really didn't work in anything representational until I moved to LA, and then it kind of started creeping back in.
Back into the portraiture.
Yeah. But like, you know, coming to portraiture as like an adult. And having a much broader understanding of what it can do. Like a coming home almost. Yeah.
Oh, cool. I love that.
Yeah.
Portraiture is something that I've actually always really, really been into, and I like it when it doesn't actually look, it's not photorealistic portraiture. Like it's an interpretation of a face, because there's so much about like people's expressions and their faces, and like 2 eyes, a nose, and a mouth can do so much more than just that. Yeah. Is there anything about faces or like what really captivates you about the face?
I think for this particular show, and especially like the larger works with just a singular figure, I really indulged in the concept of like the face as like a lightning rod. Like that's something that I kept thinking about a lot when I was painting.
A lightning rod for what?
Just everything. You know what I mean? It's like to see another face, your brain immediately just makes all of these like inferences. Right. You immediately like empathize and you jump into like whatever that face is feeling, whatever they're
You can read it.
Yeah, as like an emotion. You kind of like meet it there on that level.
Yeah.
So I really got into the idea of like only giving that amount of information. And then the rest, like there's no background, there's no, you're just kind of like in that moment, kind of frozen in time with that face. Yeah. Right.
It's interesting that you mentioned abstract expressionism earlier, because I feel like having a face without context is quite an abstract quality, expression, an abstract expression on a face.
Yeah, totally.
Because so much of the things that we, like you said, infer about people's faces comes from the context of it, like where you've seen them. Do they look happy? Do they look sad? Why? Maybe it's raining outside, but they look super happy, so you're just like, wow, what'd they have for breakfast? I want that too.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I feel like, there's just so much there. I love when people can kind of come to my work and they're like, oh, this reminds me of like this person in my life. Yeah. Which obviously there's no way in which I could have known that particular story. But I really like that the work is coming from a very specific image, and then it gets opened up for that broader kind of like way to people to access it. Right.
Yeah. It's so funny you say that, because it was I think that one, when we were at the opening night the other night, it looks like a photo of my mom from when she was in her 20s.
Oh, cool, nice, yeah.
Like not word for word or not picture for picture, but there's something about the hair and the earring. It was her backstage at this thing that she was doing, and I don't know, it really kind of got me. So it's funny that you're aware that sometimes people put other people into your paintings.
Absolutely, yeah. And again, I think it's starting from like a very specific image and like walking away from the individual,
right?
So that you can kind of tap into like other people's memories, which is really fun, to do.
Very crystal ball-esque.
Yeah, totally.
I like that. I mean, even the colors in the paintings, especially the one behind you and the one that looked like my mom, they give me crystal ball vibes. Those colors.
Yeah.
They're swirly.
Usually, so for these particular pieces that you pointed out, that blue color is the underpainting.
Oh.
That's the ground, and then everything gets painted around it.
Is that your technique with all of them?
Pretty much, yeah. Like the one right across the way, like the red is like that pink red is the underpainting.
Okay.
But I feel like it, like for me, it's like the face, because it's taking up so much of the composition, becomes a passage.
Okay. Passage to where?
Just for like for layering.
Oh, okay.
And so I want to keep
like a pathway.
Yeah, I want to find like a good balance of like not closing it down all the way.
All right.
And so like that becomes like the open window, and everything else kind of like the background gets built up or locked out.
Okay. Took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say you build up.
Yeah.
So you use airbrushing in a lot of these paintings, or all of them actually, right?
Yep, all of these. Yeah.
So what's that process like? Is it similar to spray painting at all?
Yeah, it's quite similar.
Okay.
You're hooked up to like a little compressor machine. For me, I have A lot of artists use a top feed. This is technical, but like I use a bottom feed.
Like in like a tattoo gun almost? They have those little caps up top?
Yeah. So yeah, the top feed you just have like a bigger bottle and you kind of like squirt it into like a little cup at the top.
Okay.
For me, I have like pre-mixed bottles, so I'll just like, instead of a palette, I just have like a row of bottles.
Oh, cool.
And I'll just kind of like switch out in between. And, it's kind of, I think a lot about printing as well when I'm making the work, because like I'll only be using one color at a time.
All right.
So usually like I'll lay out like a layer of like yellow or red. And then I'll like do a layer of like red and then a layer of blue and then just kind of like go back and forth between all of those until it builds up like a critical mass of just like
that's
like
really
the colors
cool.
become activated or they kind of like vibrate next to each other.
So does the music you're listening to ever impact like your color choice? Or do you start with the color and kind of go from there?
I usually, for this particular body of work, and this is what I personally, growing at different stages as an artist, this will always be like my period of color. Right. Like total color exploration. Yeah. Just seeing what I can do and how I can push it. When I work, it's like usually like 15, 20 minutes at a time. Just for one painting? No, just in different sessions. Okay. Yeah. But the paintings happen really quickly. Right. And so if I'm in there, if I'm painting, if I'm like in the flow, the music that I usually listen to is just like really like pumped up music. It's just like really exuberant. And so there's just like a lot of energy between like the spray and the like pressurization of the paint, and then like like kind of what I'm doing. It feels very amped up. Definitely. Even just the way you're talking about it, like there's a lot of energy to it. It's almost like it's like dancing or something. Yeah. Like that. So it's really really fun to make the work as well. Yeah. So I feel like you can feel that like there is enjoyment in the colors and everything. Like it has a lot of life to it, even though, like you said earlier, they are just two-dimensional paints on canvas. Yeah. Do you remember the first person you ever painted? I used to just copy a lot. Like I used to just like find an image that I'd want to work with and then try to like one-to-one like copy that. Like those were the earliest kind of memories. Yeah. My grandfather was also a watercolorist, a painter himself. So and an illustrator too, so it's in the fam. Yeah, there are notebooks that I still have where it was like one page of a sketchbook. He would draw something, and then leave the other page blank so we could copy. That's really beautiful that you guys had that. So it was always I've always been encouraged to be creative and to pursue being an artist. Was he a big inspiration for you with your art? I would say it's like it takes a village, so he was definitely like a big piece of the puzzle. I think his wife, my grandmother, was also very supportive going to museums. Yeah. My parents too, just like having that be a part of life. Yeah. So yeah, all of those things. Oh, that's so amazing to hear, because I hope I don't end up on a tangent, but I just find it so incredible to be able to teach children about art, because it really like opens up their world. And you are my perfect little golden egg now that I can think of the fact that it really did like enrich your life in such a beautiful way that you're the first show to open up a new gallery now because of this great love of yours, but you can make something and connect with people. What's that feel like? I feel like that there's never been, I've always just wanted my life to be surrounded by art in any capacity. And that's why I was always making work, always making work. But then, moving to New York, I became a curator because I just wanted to have more art. Yeah. I just wanted to have more, be part of the conversation. Scoop it all up. Yeah, and then I was like writing too, so it was just like, I couldn't do enough to self-educate or to participate or to give really back. Indulge. Yeah. And you just went through an artist residency with Moosey, which the gallery we were at. What was that like? That was super fun, but also like crazy. Yeah. I feel like anytime you're just in a different country, you're outside of your studio. Right, because the residency was in Norwich and outside of London. Yep, for a solid month. And so I feel like at this particular point in my life, being 30, 31, I had all these expectations coming from LA. And I feel like there was this wonderful shedding process that happened throughout the residency of just like here's what I want to happen, and then here's like what's happening, all the things that I have to like be open to.
Yeah.
And I can't hold on to like these expectations. I have to like be flexible and grow the work in ways in which I don't know what the outcome's going to be. But it just feels like planting seeds for the future. Oh,
that's so cool. And for those listening, a residency, it's kind of, tell me if you'd agree with this, it's kind of like a vacation into your own art where you go somewhere away from your regular day, away from your reality, and you can really hone in on whatever you want to work on.
Yeah, it's time and space. They come in all shapes and sizes. I think they're massively important at different critical points in one's practice or career.
Yeah.
I think the quality that I like the most about a residency is the ability to decenter yourself. Cool. Okay.
I like the way you word that. That's nice.
And it could either be, like, if you have a day job and you're balancing that, it could either be a way to unplug from that and just have, no restrictions, just time and space in the studio to work.
Right.
Or it's just a way to, again, just, like, have something unexpected happen in practice. Yeah.
Just, like, let go into your own world.
Yeah.
Well, that's really cool. Do you have a favorite piece that you made while you're in your residency?
I definitely have a few. I tried to make as much work as possible. And I think what I did in this residency early on was move away from the airbrush a little bit and go back to a paintbrush. Okay. Which again has been like it's been a solid 10 years since I've used a proper paintbrush to render something. So that was like a whole, I just felt like I like zoomed right back to being like a 19-year-old and being like, whoa. So that was crazy. But again, I feel like there are a few pieces that really resonated. And I'm definitely going to think about them and just kind of like carry them with me into future bodies of work. I don't know what the outcome's going to be yet, but
I'm like very excited to see. Yeah. I'd love to see some of these pieces too.
They'll be out in the world soon.
I'm excited. So I have my favorite question to ask everybody. And you said you were a curator, so I'm excited to hear your answer for this one. If you could curate any show, there's literally no limit to anything. You could do outer space, you could do underwater, you could do invisible cloaks, whatever. What would you curate if you had no limits?
Man, I mean, you let me have some time to think about this. And, I unfortunately, as creative as my background is, it's more about, for me, what resonates with me in that question is more just the love for the emerging. Okay. Like, I just have a profound love for like emerging artists. Okay. And I think what I would curate is some type of like, I don't know, like major exhibition, somewhat similar to like a Whitney Biennale or something.
Oh, I love the Whitney.
It's just a huge survey of like amazing talent. I want to say too, in terms of like the internet and like going through COVID and like making connections online.
As we did.
It's kind of, it's to find artists that aren't working in major cities as well. Yeah. Or not like in terms of like the New York, LA, it's just like having a larger swath of what's happening. Yeah. In terms of painting. Right. Or, contemporary art. So
contemporary painting is a big love.
I feel like I have to stick to my painting roots. I curated performance art nights, film screenings, all sorts of things before. Right. I feel like the curation would be painting centric.
I like it.
It's what I know best.
I think paintings are my favorite medium to go see. I like sculpture, I like immersive stuff, but I really think that there's something so special about just you and something painted on a piece of fabric, and you kind of create that connection and do what you will with like that space in between you and the painting.
Yeah, I feel like it's my language. You know what I mean? It's the language that I know the most fluently. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Well, hopefully we'll be able to see that show really, really soon.
Yeah. There's some more curations, no doubt.
That'll be so cool. Well, Katie, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Totally. Thank you.
If you would like to see more of Katie's work, you can find her at Katie Hector on Instagram. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.